You're watching ABC's Wide World of Sports.
The stage is set for the 7th race of the 2002 Indy Racing League season at Pikes Peak International Raceway. 4 green flag finishes this year have produced an average margin of victory of just 0.6 of a second.
Now coming for the line, checkered flag is out, and it's Hornish. Hornish by just 3 feet.
Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling.
On the last lap, DeFerrin slows, he's out of fuel. Scott Sharp goes to the lead. Oh, boy, did he go screaming past Under Jr. 83,000 people here. They're inches away at 214 miles an hour.
Come on, man. Come on, baby.
Here comes Jeff Ward. Checkered flag is out ahead, and Jeff Ward takes it. Jeff Ward by inches.
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
Great race, baby. Great race.
From all of us to all of you, happy Father's Day and welcome to Pikes Peak International Raceway, just south of Colorado Springs, and ABC's live coverage of the Radisson Indy 225. We're about ready to go green. Here are Paul Page and Scott Goodyear.
We'll take a look at the starting grid for you, Scott Goodyear. What are the drivers thinking about, considering that they're at a mile-high track?
Well, Paul, everybody talks about athletes coming to Colorado with a high altitude. It affects them. It certainly affects the drivers today. In the cockpit, their heart rate will be going 170, 180 beats per minute. Remember, these guys are out here for 2 hours. They're not in there for an inning or a period. They don't get a chance to have a break. They're out there for 2 hours nonstop, with the exception of a couple of quick 12-second pit stops, and these guys are really fit athletes.
And you may have noticed on that grid that Mark Dismore has now replaced Raul Boisel in the 2 car. Billy Boat, who actually qualified 4th quick, had to start all the way in the back because the car did not pass inspection after qualifying. The Chevrolet Corvette pace car already makes its turn down. And Jill DeFerrin and Elio Castroneves lead the field. Green flag is out. They're racing at Pikes Peak. Big separation from the front of the field back to the 5th place car. DeFerrin leads Castroneves. Felipe Giafoni moves into 3rd place. And the Penske cars now battle early on. Felipe Giafoni currently sitting 3rd. Had engine problems yesterday. They had to change before qualifying over to what they intended to be their race engine. And then he had troubles with that, only got 1 lap in qualifying, nonetheless qualified 3rd quick.
And Paul, that takes great teamwork. Remember, this is a 2-day weekend here. The teams arrived, practiced and qualified 1 day, and they're here racing the 2nd day. If there's any problems, it requires a great team to get your car back out on the track and going quickly.
And Paul, it was absolutely amazing that for Felipe Giafoni, he was only 1/1000th of a second slower than Castroneves, or he'd have been starting in the front row next to DeFerrin. Amazingly tight qualifying yesterday.
It's a rather typical Colorado afternoon here as we watch the lead. DeFerrin, Castroneves, Felipe Giafoni, and of course Sam Hornish. And that bright yellow Pennzoil Panther car has moved up into 4th place and separated somewhat from Loren Raydon, who now sits back in 5th. But along with the afternoons in Colorado, there's always a chance of a build-up shower or thunderstorm. Just before the race started, a cloud moved over the track, but it appears to be moving away. We'll show you the track conditions and what these drivers face on the surface itself today. Light winds, they were much stronger during qualifying yesterday.
They certainly have been, Paul, and look for these winds to pick up as the race progresses on. Typically here in Colorado, the winds will pick up maybe about 10 miles an hour as you move into the afternoon. All these teams and drivers are aware of that, and they start to change their cars throughout the pit stops to adjust for that.
Sam Hornish has moved around Felipe Giafoni and into 3rd place behind Elio Castroneves.
Just before the start of the race, Paul, Sam Hornish had a long discussion with his spotter, Pancho Carter. They both decided that what they would do is set a conservative pace early, and then Pancho Carter says, what do you mean? Save it for the last 20 laps and then go for the win? And all Sam Hornish says, sounds good to me.
You notice in the race analysis there, the banking here not nearly what we had just a week ago at Texas.
And Paul, that certainly plays a part not only to the teams, but especially the drivers. They're so used to having the situation, having the banking grip the car going around the turn. Now with the banking here being as low as it is compared to where we've come from, the car gets a lot harder workout in the turns here. And the fuel balance, as we call it, over the time the drivers are on the track for their fuel load, maybe 50 or 60 laps, is very crucial. We look for the cars to maybe go off a little bit at the end of the fuel load, the drivers to relay that information to the teams and adjust it during pit stops.
So Hornish sits back in third. The race is led by Gilles de Ferran, who jumped into the lead from the pole. And there are your top six, including last week's winner, Jeff Ward.
Dad, and not only my dad, but everybody's dad, happy Father's Day.
ABC Sports Championship Television, the Indy Racing League at Pike's Peak Raceway. 225 laps, and the leaders are already having to work their way through traffic. They're running fast laps here at 165 miles an hour. That's incredibly fast on a short little mile track.
Well, Paul, you think about and look how close we're going here, and the people on the left-hand side of your screen, where they're running at this point in time. Remember, 165 miles an hour average. We're doing 1 mile track here in about 20 to 22 seconds, depending on traffic. Now, you think about driving your car to work in the morning and how long it takes to cover a mile. These guys are having to do this, contend with traffic, dive inside like we see Sam Hornish doing right now, and listen to the spotter, and then make sure the car is still getting around the turn. A tough job for these drivers at this high altitude.
We have been watching last week's winner, Jeff Ward, and Gary Gerald, he's got a problem.
Yeah, he's called into the crew that he's got a big vibration, as he called it. The crew has radioed back that his tire pressures on the telemetry all look good, so they don't know what the problem is at this point, but Ward just did lose a position to Scott Sharp moments ago.
And Ward has now dropped down to 7th place, though he was third quick last lap. But of course now traffic is playing into that.
Well, it certainly does, Paul, but one thing that happens here, sometimes you take your tires that you qualified on, and they come off the racetrack, you put them back on the car for today's event, and maybe they've picked up some debris, and we call debris or marbles or rubber as it's known, and possibly the tires are now out of balance. There's nothing wrong with the Firestone tires per se, but maybe he was offline, collected some of those marbles, and now they're off of balance.
Scott Goodyear, you will notice that Helio Castroneves is closing on your leader, Gilles de Ferran. De Ferran has had his car go from neutral to a big loose condition. He's radioed to Roger Penske that he's trying to hold on the best he can. Roger very calmly said, "I understand."
Don't forget to log on to ESPN.com, keyword ABC IRL, to check out our new Speedcast real-time race results and IRL Challenge fantasy game.
Now, Paul, you heard from Jack that the car is going loose with Gilles de Ferran right now. What that means is he turns into the corner and the back end of the car wants to come around on him. We call that a loose race car, loose condition. We talked earlier in the show how a car has to last over the fuel load here from lap 1 to lap 50 or 60 or whenever the car will actually go into the pits for a service. The car that's consistent here today will be the guy that's going to win this race over each fuel load. It's very, very crucial at this track because you're spending most of your time in the turns.
Keeping track of Billy Boat, who we said had qualified well but had to move to the back. He's now up to 16th from starting in last place. Castroneves taking a real good look on the inside after they come around John Herb.
Plus 1.5 Hornish.
You heard some radio contact from the team going to Castroneves right now, who's running in second, and for certain he knows that his teammate's having a problem.
Helio Castroneves, one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Sincere, straightforward, and pretty funny, especially when he's working with his teammate, Gilles de Ferran. Right now, he'd like to pull a joke on de Ferran and get around him.
Paul, if you ask Helio Castroneves who his favorite driver is, He doesn't name Emerson Fittipaldi. He doesn't name his teammate, Gilles de Ferran. He has become enamored with the world of outlaws in sprint car racing. He met Danny the Dude Lasowski during IROC competition, and I understand that they converse every single week.
What a problem in turn one, guys. Robbie Buell has just pulled down low off the track.
Robbie Buell pulls down to the
Come on, get the
inside.
brake. Don't know what to tell you.
And no indication why he did, but the best guess is that it's something back in the power plant.
Well, possibly, but the neat thing that you see here, Robbie Buell, a veteran, gets off the track, gets off the racing line, gets onto what we call the warm-up lane, just in case there's any fluids leaking from the racetrack, and not to make it greasy for the other guys on the racetrack.
So under our first caution at Pikes Peak.
With the caution out here at Pikes Peak for the first time, that causes a tremendous amount of activity on pit road. You see Team Penske having completed their work, going back out on the racetrack, and right behind Helio Castroneves is Sam Hornish.
And Bob, one of the things, the change that was made on your leader Gilles de Ferran's car, one complete turn taken out of the front wing. Remember, de Ferran complaining of a loose condition.
Gary Gerald is with Robbie Buell, who caused this yellow.
Robbie, any indications of a problem early on, or what? Do you have any idea what happened?
No indications. Just coming off of 4 there, and just something let go. You get to a certain point when you're like, what did we do to deserve this? We just can't seem to keep things together, and it's no reflection of the Purex of Venice guys. I mean, it's one of those deals, and you get tired of saying that, but we just got to keep working, and it will come to us eventually. But it is frustrating, to say the least.
I'm judging from what I see the moisture out of the back of the car and not raindrops, and it is starting to rain now. This is not something that can be repaired or get you back out at all.
No, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done, and you just wonder how long it can continue, because we got a good group of guys, we got good backers, and with Purex and Event, and it just, I'm where I throw my hands up right now.
He's at the mercy of somebody, and he wishes it wasn't that way, Bob.
Well, the weather is really strange here in Colorado. 2 days ago, we had a heavy hailstorm here at the Speedway, and apparently there's a little bit of hail falling right now. But again, as Paul Page indicated just a few moments ago, these showers occurred virtually every day, and they move over an area very quickly and then move on. So this hopefully won't be a long delay. But as you can see right now, the hail is falling pretty strong out there on the racetrack, and that's causing this yellow that was caused by Robbie Buell to continue. One thing we might mention is that Robbie Buell, who of course drives an Infinity engine, there was an announcement from that group earlier this week that they would concentrate only on the Infinity Pro Series, the support series for the IRL, which actually begins competition this year in Kansas City. They will focus their entire attention next year on that series and will not be providing engines for the Indy Racing League. There is Eddie Cheever Jr., who of course his team has been the Infinity standard bearer, shall we say, for the last couple of years. Well, the red flag is going to be displayed because it is raining and hailing pretty hard right now. So the cars are going to come off of the racetrack, and we are going to be delayed for a while until we can get this racetrack dry and raceable once again. We'll be back after this, and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. Well, the sun is shining brightly. However, it continues to rain, as you can see, and the hailstones were quite a sight to see here just a few moments ago. It's put a lot of moisture down on this racetrack. We mentioned the Infinity Pro Series, and Jack Arute is standing by with one of the competitors in that series.
Longtime fans of IndyCar racing could take a look at this silhouette and say, my gosh, it looks like A.J. Foyt. Well, it is, but it's A.J. Foyt the fourth. Anthony, your pappy, your grandfather, gave you a surprise for your 18th birthday, an Infinity Pro Series car. You're going to test it?
We're going to try to get it in and test. We haven't got our motor yet, but we're going to try to test it maybe sometime later this week, later next week, or just hopefully get some kind of test before Kansas.
Now, tell me about your feelings about making a jump from go-karts to Formula Fords and now all the way to the Infinity Pro Series. What have you told Granddad?
It's really exciting. I'm just glad he gave me the opportunity to do what I can do, and hopefully we'll have a good year with Harris and hopefully move up next year, maybe to the IRL.
So did you say, Pops, I can win?
I think he knows I can win. It's just a matter of just getting it all done and getting it all put together in one day.
Bob?
The Infinity Pro Series will begin in Kansas City in a couple of weeks. Well, last Saturday night, we had an incredible finish at Texas Motor Speedway as Jeff Ward visited victory lane for the first time in his career, beating Al Unser Jr. by 11 thousandths of a second. And Ayrton Dare, a member of the Team Foyt, was third position. After the celebrating was finished, we gave the Ward family a camcorder and asked them to take us along on the ride from Texas to here in Colorado.
I just like driving. It's after the race, it's peaceful, and it's just a lot easier to head right down to the racetrack or a campground and play around with the kids than to fly back for 2 or 3 days and fly back out with, 4 kids.
Smile, guys. Say cheese.
Some long days, 10 or 11 hours in the bus, but we try to stop and let them stretch it out. But once I get going, I get focused, and they got to bug me to stop for food. You got SpongeBob SquarePants on and Rugrats, and every kid's video that's above my head that's blaring. I have to mentally block out the pain.
Happy birthday to
Sienna turned 3 on Thursday, the 13th, and she was a little shy with the camera. She gets embarrassed when she gets something and has to bury her head. Usually Ayrton's Eddie Cheever and Alon's Greg Ray. I don't know why, but that's what they pick. So I'm never in the race. There's always somebody else. The campground where I was a dust bowl, so then it would rain every night, so it looked like a mud bog. So I'd go wash it every morning as I was looking for my Starbucks, as you can see on the tape. Hallelujah, found the Starbucks. The gas station, I think it was closed down for a day or 10 years, and figured out. That was good camera work because I did it myself. I put the camera up on the washing machine over there and filmed myself because my wife she had to watch the kids, so I had to do my own film work. It was either I stay and watch the kids or I go do the laundry, so laundry is more peaceful.
Well, a good idea of what life is like away from the racetrack for Jeff Ward and his family. He's been in a conference here with Rob Hill, the team manager, and Mitch Davis, who's helped on the engineering, as the crews have now been advised that they can work on the cars. But before we talk about what kind of changes may be happening there, let me just take you back last week, as we did earlier today in the IRL Today show, and savor that moment. That last lap was so full of drama. What did it feel like from your seat?
Yeah, it was extremely exciting for sure, but when I came out of that last pit stop, I knew I had to hustle to get up the lead pack, and we were real fortunate to drop right in there with everybody. And I was back there in like fourth place there, like kind of lit off the back just a little bit, and thinking, oh no, I'm losing the draft. And then I sucked up and got by Dare and Helio, and then we just went side by side. I knew not to follow Lau down the back straight because Dare would have drafted me, and went around the outside of me, I would have got stuck. So I just pulled out off of 2 and got next to Lau going into 3, and just was able to creep by, at the line. And I couldn't really tell who won because it's a dog leg there, and he kind of faded away when he went towards the left. I kind of went straight, but the guys over the radio pretty much let me know with the hooting and hollering.
Well, we look once again at that amazing finish, and then of course the elation of a first ever IRL victory for a man who won so many championships and as a motocross rider so many years ago, to come into open wheel racing and have more than paid your dues. Now that you've had a week to kind of think about it, what's it meaning to you?
Well, it's a lot of hard work to get to that point, and it was just a relief to get it off my back and not have the question, when am I going to win? Because I've been in position to win quite a few times and just didn't have the luck go my way. So I finally had the luck go my way, and the Target Chip Ganassi guys did a great job like we've done all year and ran up front, and we're trying to get through today with this hailstorm here.
Let me ask you a quick question. We heard you on the radio saying you had a big vibration in the early stuff before the weather took hold here at the racetrack. What do you do to try to correct it now during this red flag?
Well, hopefully it was just maybe the set of tires may have picked up something, or now we got a new set of tires on after the pit stop, so I'll go out and see how that was. But the track's pretty tricky right now, and who knows what it's going to be like now that we had a little hailstorm and rain on it. But we're pretty comfortable. The pace is, we're running is not too bad, but we should get the car quite a bit better here before the end of the race.
Thanks. Going for number 2, Jeff Ward.
And his victory was the closest margin in history. We had a close race in 1999 here at Pikes Peak. The margin of victory just 0.12 of a second. Well, we completed 34 laps here, and then we had a rain and hailstorm that has wetted the racetrack, drying procedures are underway right now. Pikes Peak International Raceway is more than a mile above sea level, and that means some adjustments in terms of the drivers and the cars. We get more from Jeff Britton, who's the chief engineer for Delphi Team Kelly.
The last time we ran the high downforce package, we were in Phoenix, where the altitude is 3,300 feet lower than it is here at Pikes Peak. By bringing the car up to Pikes Peak, we lose about 600 pounds of downforce and about 200 pounds of drag. Normally, a 600-pound reduction in downforce would mean a one-way ticket straight into the fence. But the altitude also robs more than 100 horsepower from these engines, causing the situation to pretty much be a wash. We end up setting up the car much the same way we did in Phoenix, with a few exceptions. The first major exception is engine cooling. Due to the altitude, the cooling capacity is reduced by about 15%, which means teams have to open up their radiator exits to get more air to flow through the radiators so that the cars do not overheat. The second major exception is the pressure sensors on the car. When you get to Pikes Peak, all the pressure sensors read 2.5 pounds low because of the altitude, which may not be a big deal in this case with the oil pressure sensor, but can be a very big deal when you're talking about tire pressures, where 1/2 pound can change the handling of the car. The last major thing that the altitude affects is the tire wear. Because of the decreased horsepower, our fuel economy increases by about 15%, which means we have to run the tires about 15% longer.
Some of the changes necessitated by racing here at Pikes Peak, which is more than a mile above sea level. You can see the drying procedures underway right now. Well, Gilles de Ferran had led the entire race until he made the pit stop. That gave the lead to Billy Boat. Let's go down and talk with de Ferran. Here's Jack.
But as we reported, just before the hailstorm came, Gilles de Ferran's Marlboro Team Penske mount went big time loose. You went with a wing adjustment during the pit stop. Any concerns about it going loose as quickly as it did, Gilles?
Not really. I mean, we try to set up the car as neutral as we can, and sometimes it goes a little bit to the loose side, but it was quite manageable, so hopefully the wing will get it even better.
One of the great things about the Indy Racing League is the difference between Indy, the 1.5-mile super speedways, and the 1-mile bull rings. You say that this is the greatest challenge for race car drivers. Why?
I enjoyed this type of racetrack. I mean, it's difficult, you know, to take a car like this to the limit. We pull a lot of G's around here, nearly 5 G's all the way around the racetrack. It's very much a handling racetrack. It's hard to get it right, so I guess that's why I like it.
By the way, happy Father's Day. What did your son and daughter give you for Father's Day?
They gave me a nice card, so that was kind of nice.
Now, I understand, though, your son really got up in your grill yesterday, decided to give you a noogie on your head?
Yes, he does that every morning, you know. He wakes me up by jumping on top of me.
Bob?
Gilles de Ferran, who will be shown as second when we get the restart. We'll join ABC Sports on Saturday as defending champion Phil Mickelson battles Sergio Garcia, Vijay Singh, and a field of some of the best PGA tours right now. The Greater Hartford Open coverage beginning Saturday live at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. That's 1 Pacific on ABC. The Canon Greater Hartford Open here on ABC. We'll be right back.
Hey, I made it to the Indy 500 winner's circle. Now it's your turn. Later, I'll give you a number to call, and you could win an all-access pass to next year's Indy 500. So, stay tuned.
A lot of moisture in the form of rain and hail fell here, but as you can see, the track is drying very quickly because the wind is blowing, and now, Paul Page, we have bright sunshine.
Unbelievable how quickly the weather changes here in Colorado. Now, think about this. These race drivers, they back time the start very carefully. That is, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they want to be doing just this. And they get very protective about a half an hour before the start and don't really want to talk to anyone other than their crew. But now, suddenly, everything stops. How do they get back in the game?
And Paul, that is a mindset that you're talking about, and all these drivers start to get to be a different person come race morning, and especially close to race time, as you talk about. And once they get focused, they get in the car, and they have to come back and do it again. They have to build that mindset back up, and that's what they'll be doing right now. A lot of people are going to want interviews, they're going to have to speak to their team, but they're going to be looking for some quiet time to get their mind back in place to get ready to take a green flag.
Now, as you already know, this is a 1-mile tri-oval. What that really means is there is little or no chance to rest here.
There really isn't. We talked earlier in the show about 170, 180 beats per minute heart rate just because you're up here about a mile high in Colorado. That's one difficulty. But as you heard Gilles de Ferran also say, you're turning a lot around this racetrack here. The car really has to handle. And for all those drivers right now, they're talking in this timeout as we have it to maybe do some adjustments with their team because now they're allowed to work on the car. A few guys, Jeff Ward, we know is going to be doing some work. Thomas Schechter's had some problems. And also Mark Dismore. You can bet that they're going to have a different race car when they go out for the green flag.
And you may think, well, last Saturday night at Texas Speedway, they were well over 200 miles an hour. Here they're running the race at 167 miles an hour. Let me assure you, Bob Jenkins, on a 1 mile oval, 167 is hauling the mail.
It sure is, and hopefully we'll see those speeds in about 20 minutes, according to Race Control. We're nearing the halfway point of the Indy Racing League schedule. After today, we move to Richmond International Raceway for a night race on June the 29th. The second half of the season will feature 2 already sold-out events at Kansas Speedway and Chicagoland. There's another night race at Nashville and the series' first visit to Michigan International Speedway. The season concludes as usual with a return visit to Texas. On this Father's Day 2002, we asked several drivers about fond memories of their dads.
Yeah, I'd like to say hi to my dad. Happy Father's Day. Without you, I wouldn't be here today.
Hey, Dad, happy Father's Day. A lot of people say we look alike. I guess you're a pretty lucky guy.
Hey, Dad, happy Father's Day. Thanks for all the help and support you've given me over the years.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Wish you were out here with me right now. Remember those days when we first started racing and you were always getting my lap times, my corner times, and wish you're still here with me.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Remember the time when I was 6 years old, the first race I ever ran, they held me up on a starting line so I wouldn't fall over. And then you had to chase me around the racetrack 6 times as I fell down, so thanks for that.
Dad, happy Father's Day. I remember when you had hair.
Well, Dad, happy Father's Day. You know, I remember when we first went to the track and you kept making me practice and practice and practice, and I didn't really want to do it, but fortunately it paid off.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you, and I remember when I was a little kid and you had a push stick behind a go-kart and you used to push me around the neighborhood, and you were a lot younger and I was a lot younger.
Big Bill Boat no longer has to hold his son Billy up at the starting line, but Bill, I understand as you were driving the family motorhome here that you had a real close call. Tell us about it.
Well, we either ran over something laying in the road or something. Anyway, we blew out both rear tires on the right rear of the coach, which caused the thing to try to jump off the road, which in turn popped both windshields out of it, blew the cabinet doors off of it, and other than that, it was nothing.
Well, Billy wants to give you a special Father's Day present. Henceforth, he wants you to wear this when you're driving out there on the motorhome. Hey, Billy, let's talk for a moment about how you've inherited the lead here. You had to start in the back of the field, but while everybody made pit stops, you elected to stay out, and now, because you can work on your car, you've been able to make your pit stop under red flag conditions.
Yeah, it was a great call by Daryl Soppe and the Curb Records team. You know, we saw the rain coming. It was already rain on the back straight. They yelled right at the last minute to stay out. We led the pack around, and then we got to do the pit stop under the red. So it was a great call. Now just want to keep the Curb Records car up front.
Bob?
He goes from last to first. Billy Boat will be at the front of the field when we go back to green flag racing, hopefully within the next few minutes. Again, Race Control told a few minutes ago that we had about 20 minutes until we get the green flag once again. We'll be back after this, and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. It's a bright, sunshiny day south of Colorado Springs at Pikes Peak International Raceway, but a few minutes ago we had a lot of rain and hail. The track, as you can see, is drying rapidly. Hopefully back to racing before too long. Tiger Woods leads the U.S. Open right now by 3 strokes. Let's compare his career and Sam Hornish Jr. in the first 27 career events. Hornish with 5 wins, Tiger with 6, and you can see how close they are, comparing them their top 5s, their top 10s, and their championship majors. Gary Gerald is standing by with Sam Hornish Jr.
But you know one thing I found out, Bob, Tiger Woods can still outdrive Sam Hornish. Are you much of a golfer?
Not at all. I try, but I'm not very good.
We were talking about the Father's Day theme. Your dad, Sam Sr., is here today, as he always is when you race, right?
Yeah, he's been to every race I've ever been in, and you know, it's just always a lot of motivation and, you know, a lot of support there.
And your first race, how old were you?
11 years old.
So Dad has been to a lot of racetracks with you, huh?
13 years worth, and you know, when I ran go-karts, there was 60, 70 races a year where we ran 30 weekends, but 3 times a weekend he was my mechanic the whole time I ran go-karts. So it's always good. When we got to IndyCars, he had a hard time adjusting because he couldn't work on anything. They wouldn't let him touch anything. So he just kind of hangs around and lurks in the shadows now.
Well, yeah, we were wondering. He's not down here in the pits, right? You have any idea where he is?
I don't know. He's either in the pits, walking around somewhere, or he's over in the stands. One of the yeah.
Tell us about how this race was progressing for you, starting in the second row.
The race is going pretty good. We got past Giaffoni there at the beginning, and we're just trying to take our time and be patient and make the right choices and right decisions. And well, you know, the Pennzoil Panther team has given me a pretty good car so far, and we're going to make a few little small changes and see what it does for us.
Now, last year you virtually dominated this race, but then I guess you got a bad set of tires on the last stop, and it ended up a second-place finish. Any similarities at all to your experience last year and what you've experienced thus far this weekend?
You know, this track definitely changes a lot with temperatures, and you know, we had 8 similar sets of tires last year, and the car went bad towards the end, and you know, that's just a lot of the heat changing in the track, and the car had gotten a little loose a little bit before that, and so we don't want to blame it on the tires because we don't really feel that that's a valid thing, but that's the key to this track is how much everything changes, and what do you know, another change.
Well, we've had hailstones, we've had rain, now we've got sunshine. Hope you're back out there in the office pretty quick.
As long as it's not snowing, we'll be okay.
I'll vote for that. Get your 4-iron out and go to work here while we got a few moments. Sam Hornish, Bob.
Sam Hornish has slipped to 3rd in the point standings. Well, if you're just joining us, we are under a rain delay. About 20 or 25 minutes ago, we had a big rain and hailstorm that moved over the speedway, put a lot of moisture down. But the sun has come out, the wind has picked up, and the track is drying very, very quickly. So we should be going back to racing, hopefully, before too much longer. Elio Castroneves ran for second for quite a while to his teammate Gilles de Ferran, but then the hail came, stopping the activity. Most everybody made a pit stop. Billy Boat didn't. He will be at the front of the field when we go back to racing. Only 9 players remain, and one of them is a double agent known as the Mole. ABC's ultimate spy game is a real-life mystery you can solve. The Mole 2 tracked down a whole new set of clues this Tuesday at 9, 8 Central, only on ABC. Track drying continues. Back in just a moment. Welcome back to live coverage of the Pikes Peak Indy 225 for the Indy Racing League. Still under a rain delay. You can see the track is basically dry. The problem right now is pit road. Everything will have to be dry before we can go back to racing. Well, Alex Barron is competing in his 8th Indy Racing League event here today. Recently at the Indianapolis 500, he recorded his best finish of 4th and was named Co-Rookie of the Year at that race. Alex started his racing career in go-karts, and now karting is still very much a part of his life.
I started racing when I was 9. My father and I went to Riverside. We went up there and watched the race, and then we were hooked ever since. It's something that I didn't know at the time, but I was very passionate towards it, and I knew that's what I was working for. And then when I push you off, you just pull the clutch in, and then push it down for first, and then roll your foot on the throttle, and it'll take right off. What we do is we're actually the kart shop that puts them all together. We get the karts, they come from Italy. Accelerates like 0 to 60 in about 3.2. Top speed is like 100 miles an hour on the road race tracks. We run engine management system, and then we run data acquisition stuff too. We give the customer technical support, and that's really important in the karting industry. It's a lot of work, you know, but I've done it my whole life, and I love it as much as I did when I first started, so just very passionate about it. When you gave it throttle, it was going forward. It didn't disengage the clutch enough, so you want to start grabbing the clutch a little bit earlier to give it time to release the disc. You want to do a lot of things that simulate what you do in the race car, and the big part of that is just going out at the kart track and doing a lot of laps. I run, I cycle, I do things like that, but I would say karting is probably the best thing to do for me to actually stay in shape in order for me to prepare myself to get in the race car. You want to make sure you have fun. At this level, it has to be fun. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, there's no sense in going out to the track.
On the course, Alex Barron, and he's on it.
I want to win a championship. Until I achieve that, I won't be satisfied. And even then, I'd want to do it again and again and again.
I want to take you back to just before the start of the running of the Indianapolis 500. Alex Barron, you and your dad, Richard, walked out to the line together. And he broke down in tears?
Yeah, it was pretty emotional. You know, it's something that I sat on the couch as a young kid and watched the Indy 500 early Sunday morning. I remember I had to get up pretty early to watch it there in California. And you know, I wouldn't be here today racing at Pike's Peak without my father.
Richard Barron, I guess it was an emotional moment for you, was it not?
Yes, it was very emotional. I loved every second of it.
You want to say anything to your dad?
Yeah, happy Father's Day, Dad, and I wish you were here.
So far, how do you think he's doing over here in the Indy Racing League, Mr. Barron?
Well, Alex has always been very good at everything that he does, and he's doing very well. As time goes on, he will be a front row contender.
Boy, that's a lot of pressure from Pop.
Yeah, it sure is. Reminds me of the go-kart track. That's what he used to say. You know, it's never easy. You got to keep pushing, and that's the only way you get to the front.
Happy Father's Day, Mr. Barron.
Thank you very much. We all love you, Alex. We're watching, and good luck. Go get him, buddy.
Thanks, Dad. Happy Father's Day.
Gary Gerald.
Well, we're at the other end of pit road, and alongside is Helio Castro-Neves, now a two-time winner of the Indy 500. Your dad today, not on the continent. He's down in Brazil?
He's down in Brazil, and he's probably jumping down now to see what's going on. And last time we were in this situation like this was like last year in Indianapolis. And he came with me, and it was like a little smile when I was leading. And then I said, Dad, it's not over yet. So, Dad, it's not over yet.
Have you talked to him earlier today?
This morning I did. I wish him a happy Father's Day. By the way, happy Father's Day to everyone. So let's see if I can give him a present.
Now, just a few minutes ago, you had the entire crew gathered around you here, and on one of the monitors here in the scoring stand, they were checking out the pit stop and all the action, the various individuals. Were you kind of being the critic, or were you handing out grades on your crew here?
I tell you, those guys are fast, and that's what I listen, guys. Thank you very much, and I appreciate if you guys can do this more often. So they did a fantastic job. So, but again, we have to do it again.
Now, we mentioned earlier today in our IRL Today show that you were the first driver in the history of this facility yesterday to go over 180 miles an hour on a mile oval. Yeah, wow. We were impressed. Were you impressed?
Yeah, I tell you, the car was very fast. Again, the conditions change every single second, looks like. And but it's impressive. Those guys, everyone's doing a fantastic job, as I said. And we just have to keep working. Now it's not about to be fast. Now it's about to be consistent, and so far we're looking good.
What kind of changes do you think you'll encounter now in terms of the racetrack after the hail and the rain?
Well, I guess we just have to keep seeing. We're probably going to have 2 more pit stops. Depends of the yellow when come out. But right now we're just waiting, as same as everybody.
Did the car feel good when you were out there?
Feels very good. I'm not changing at all. So hopefully that was a good change.
You got a fence picked out that you might climb today?
To climb the fence, first we have to finish.
Yeah, he knows all about that. He's already done it a couple of times here this year. Helio Castro-Neves.
The current points leader in the Indy Racing League, and we are told that we'll be back to racing in just a few moments. The track is dry, however, pit road remains just a little wet. As soon as it is wet and the entry lanes also to the pit area are dry, we will get back to racing. Well, this past Thursday, a group of Indy Racing League drivers, owners, and officials visited the Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station just south of Colorado Springs. This is home to 3 defense commands, including NORAD. The complex is located approximately 2,000 feet underground. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, you talk about a man that traditionally has had bad luck. You talk about Mark Dismore, but he got the phone call this week to fill in for John Menard as Jacques Lazier continues to be on the mend. And I understand that this rain and hailstorm was a stroke of good luck for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, maybe all the bad luck John's had and the bad luck I've had is canceling each other out here. But we actually had an alternator that did something that generally alternators don't do. Normally they fail to supply energy to the system, but we had one that for some reason was just supercharging the system, and we were going to end up frying our wiring and stuff. So this couldn't have come at a better time.
John, all of a sudden you've had a little bit of Dismore's type luck this season, but as he says, maybe it cancels things out.
I think we got some good vibrations going here between the two of us. Hopefully we're going to have a good race.
You remember, Gary Gerald, a couple of races ago, John Menard couldn't find his fire suit. They have found it. The name John is there, but his fact that Dismore was pressed into such quick service, the name has been changed, Gary Gerald.
To protect the innocent.
These guys, they don't miss a beat, do they? They're right on top of the situation. Felipe Giafoni is down here, drives the 21 car for Morris Nunn Racing, Peter Parrott and the crew. Yesterday in qualifying, you came within 1/1000th of a second of knocking Castroneves out of the front row, and you did it with just one qualifying lap. Now, tell me what happened when you went out the first time to qualify.
Yeah, basically what happened, we missed the second session, so we didn't know what we should do for qualifying, you know. So we had the first attempt, and the car was a little bit too loose, you know. So I came in. Once you come in, you just have one shot and one lap, you know. And it seems that we made a pretty good change, and the car was working very well.
Now, how's the car been working thus far today prior to the weather?
We're having, I mean, the car is very good for the first 2-3 laps, you know, with the tire, and then it starts to give away a little bit. I think we're just a little loose coming out of 2 and pushing coming out of 4. Hopefully we made some change. Hope it's gonna be better now.
This team has been on a nice roll in recent events, getting a lot of momentum. What's the confidence level like right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last 3 races we've been in the top 5, including Indy, you know. And I think we're still learning, you know. It's a new team, and they're doing a great job.
Indeed they are. Felipe Giafoni currently in the 5th spot. He's high on the racetrack. Looking like you're going to go to business here pretty quick.
Yeah, it should go.
All right, should go. We're all ready for that, Bob.
As you can see, the cars are being gridded, and yeah, we should be back to racing here in just a very few moments. Well, join us Saturday, June the 29th, as the Indy Racing League heads to Richmond International Raceway for the SunTrust Indy Challenge, live at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ESPN. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. This is the second of 5 times this year that the Indy Racing League will compete in back-to-back weekends. Now that puts a little more pressure on the drivers and the teams to get the cars ready, as we learn in this edition of At the Track with Scott Goodyear.
The Indy Racing League arrives in Pikes Peak, Colorado from Texas Motor Speedway on what we call a very short week. Teams have had not much time to turn the cars around from a 1.5-mile format to this very tricky 1-mile circuit. The teams will tell you that this 2-day format this weekend is very tough for both drivers and the teams alike, as they have to practice and qualify on the first day and be ready to race on day 2. A team needs to excel in 3 areas to be successful in a 2-day format. Organization. The Texas 500 was last Saturday night, and that means the team had only 6 days to turn the car around from a super speedway format to a 1-mile car. When that car gets off the transporter, everybody needs to hit the ground running and be on the same page. Teamwork. The crew needs to be working as one. You only have 2 days. Teamwork in the garage area is a must, because that is where the team, especially the engineer, address problems. You want to solve these problems back in the garage area before the car gets onto pit road. Communication. Since the cars didn't have a lot of time on the track, communication between the driver, his engineer, and crew during the practice sessions is crucial. This is where the race setup is communicated between the driver and his engineer.
There's the car that will lead them to the green flag here, hopefully in just a few moments. Billy Boat's car. He did not pit during this caution, which turned out to be a red flag period. He started last, but he will be first when we get restarted. He'll be followed by Elio Castroneves, Gilles de Ferran, Sam Hornish, and Felipe Giafoni. Well, this high altitude, of course, causes some problems for the drivers also, and we asked several of the Indy Racing League veterans how they train to get ready for the competition at this thin air altitude.
I always come to Colorado about 5 days earlier and try to get as much aerobic work as I can. Your whole system works differently at this high of altitude. Nothing is worse than being out of breath in a race car with 50 laps to go.
And it's higher than normal, but it's a lot less humid than like when we were at Texas. And for me, the humidity beats me down more than the altitude.
Well, I live here, so I sit back and watch everybody sweat and laugh.
Maybe you should call that the home field advantage. But for Greg Ray, he likes to come out to Colorado very early, mixed sightseeing, bring your family, and get acclimated to the mile-high altitude.
Yeah, we've had a great week here all week. Went on a hike, went to Pikes Peak, and took in all the local attractions. Colorado Springs is a great place. You know, today, this morning in warm-up, we were 4th quick, had a great car, and I guess the Silver Crown race changed the racetrack, and we're really struggling right now. It's loose down in turn 1 and 2 and pushing in 4, so.
And you already got a wheel donut on the side where it says Harrah's.
Yeah, it looks like Buddy Lazier was struggling with his car as well. He pushed up into me. We just talked about it, and he just lost control, and luckily I was there to catch him.
Bob?
All right, thanks. And when we come back, the engines will be started. That after this and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television.
They have put out the call for drivers to report to their cars. Eddie Cheever has done so in his Red Bull Infinity-powered car. They are strapping him into his office right now. Let's see if we can get a quick comment. All right, Eddie, 34 laps have been completed. Now it's just a whole new race, or did you learn some stuff from the initial running?
I learned that hailstones hurt, even with a helmet on.
What about the performance of this car? I heard in early practice you had told your crew this was the best car you've ever had here at Colorado.
In this morning's practice, the car was perfect. It's a very, very tight field, and we're back to a 200-lap race like we were in the beginning almost. So everything is fine. Just biding my time.
Gary, if this is the best car he's ever had, remember, he's won here before.
Yes, in fact, he has. First time here for Roger Penske and his teams. How are you able to go so fast to qualify, get both guys in the front row when you've never raced here before?
Well, I think, Gary, you know, basically we had a test out here. Both guys had a test for a day, so we familiarized yourself. This is a lot like Phoenix, a lot like Nazareth, where we've had a lot of experience. But, you know, this race has just begun. You know, Hornish is there, a lot of these other cars. So we've got to finish this race. It looks good so far, but we're just going to hopefully we can be there at the end.
Do you anticipate a significant change in the racetrack all your years around this racing game when you run into a hailstorm and a rainstorm like this?
Well, I think it probably washed some rubber off. We hadn't seen that much water here since late yesterday, so I think it's going to be a little bit different. We really didn't change our car. You know, a lot of the drivers have changed gears. You know, we were a little bit loose at the beginning, and we took some wing out. That's what cost us a little time in that stop, but I think we're going to be all right.
Thank you, Roger. And Jack, back to you.
Well, Laurent Radon has been running very well, Gary. Had a very close call last night at about 11 o'clock in the evening. The crew had changed the engine getting ready, putting a new Infinity power plant in the MyJack car. We're uploading all of the computer data that was necessary to make it run, and the computer crashed. They tried and tried and tried and couldn't get the computer to unlock. The team came in early this morning. The computer guys worked on the car and the computer. They uploaded the necessary information. He's been running very good, Bob Jenkins.
Laurent Radon, one of the superb rookie drivers on the Indy Racing League Series this year. He'll restart from the 8th position. All the drivers are in their cars. The command has been given. The roar goes up once again from the straightaway here at Pikes Peak International. And we are about to get back to competition. The red flag was out for a total of 52 minutes. But now we're about to go back to competition. Billy Boat again will be at the front of the field. Now, he did not pit while everybody else did. That's why he is at the front of the field. However, the drivers and the crews were able to work on their cars during the red flag period, so he is in a very good position here as we get set to go back to racing. There's Sam Hornish Jr., of course, in the Pennzoil Panther team as he gets set to go back out onto the racetrack. They will run 3 laps under caution. Their laps will be counting. The race is 225. That is 25 laps longer than we have ever run here at Pikes Peak. It used to be a 200, but this year it has been lengthened to a 225. Hornish goes off. So does Castro Neves. So does DeFerrin. So does Boat. So do the other 21 cars and drivers. And Paul Page and Scott Goodyear, it's time for you guys to go back to work.
Now, and what a great view that was from the Chevrolet Corvette pace car. You now look over the top of the helmet of Scott Sharp, who will start in 6th place when they come back to full green flag. As Bob Jenkins mentioned, these laps under caution will count, and Billy Boat will be leading for the first time in an Indy Racing League event since at Nashville last year. Former winner here, though. And he did get a chance to totally worked the car. So as we look at the restart order, he has a full load of fuel and he has fresh tires. Same is true, by the way, of Buddy Lazier, who was in big trouble. He fell from 10th to 19th in that very short 34 laps and went a lap behind, but he stayed out as well when the caution came out, and as a result, he is now back on the lead lap and being scored in 15th position.
And Paul, all these drivers now are back into the mindset that we spoke about before. They've got in their car, they get inside, they buckle themselves up, put their visor down on their helmet, and now they know they've got 3 laps just to get themselves ready to take that green flag. They'll be back from going from 60 miles an hour on the pace laps here, back up to an average speed of about 165 to 170 miles an hour average, which equates to about 185 miles an hour down the straightaways. So without a doubt, they have to go from standing still to getting back up to race speed, just in the case of a couple of laps.
The track completely dry now, but as Roger Penske mentioned, the difference is going to be is what's the story with the track surface itself. Scott Goodyear, maybe you can find out.
Scott Sharp, this is Scott Goodyear with ABC. What's the track look like to you now that we've had this rainstorm?
It's pretty clean, Scott. You know, I'm interested to see just what the grip level is. The sun came out, warmed it up a little bit, so let's really just see how our car reacts to it.
Good luck, and hopefully you have a clean race. Thank you.
So they're lined up in race order with Billy Boat at the front, followed by Castroneves, DeFerrin, Sam Hornish Jr., and Felipe Giafoni. That evaluation of the track surface looks pretty clean. Also, I guess means there's not much rubber on it now.
They'll have to get some rubber on the short here, Paul, when they come up to the start. Single file start, as you know, and Billy Boat's at the head of the pack.
They take the green flag. Here we go. As everybody climbs over the back end of Billy Boat. Elio Castroneves goes to the lead. Gil DeFerrin drops into 3rd place. Sam Hornish in 4th. Here comes DeFerrin down the inside. DeFerrin moves into 2nd. Now it's going to be Sam Hornish Jr. that works on the curb Agajanian car of Billy Boat.
Now, Paul, we know that Billy Boat started at the back of the pack, but he did qualify 6th yesterday, but he did not pass their technical inspection, so he had to start at the back of the pack. His car certainly is a fast car. You might see him find him settle himself down here about 5th or 6th or 7th spot right now, but certainly those guys ate him up pretty quick at the beginning.
Laurent Redon in the MyJack car takes a look at Al Unser Jr., that red, white, and black machine, currently in 6th place. At the front, Team Penske goes wheel to wheel.
These guys are wasting no time. Look how close they are. We talked about how you have to get your mindset ready to go and get right back up to speed, and these guys certainly did a great job of that.
Elio Castroneves comes back, trying to get the lead back from Gil DeFerrin. Elio has led now in all 9 of his IRL starts.
Absolutely, we've heard the track conditions change here quite often. Not only is the track surface changed because of the rain coming down, washing away some of the rubber that you heard Roger Penske talk about, but the wind has completely died down now. There's no wind to speak of whatsoever. That may change, though, when we get about 150 laps into this event.
Watching the 3-way battle for 6th place, Al Unser Jr. is there. Redon's been working on it pretty hard. And Jeff Ward's been keeping an eye on the whole thing as well. Eddie Cheever has now closed in behind Ward. Once again, tire temperatures on the bottom of the Firestone graphic here, as well as our standard speed, throttle, and lateral G.
And Paul, look at the G's that we saw there. Up over 3, going on to 4 G's. And when these guys qualify, it's almost up to 5. A lot of force on these drivers in the turns.
Redon sticks his nose right down in there. Al Unser Jr. has none of it. Ward closes, Cheever closes. And finally, Redon is able to force his way past. So Redon takes over 6th place. Billy Boat is his next target. Now Ward is going to work on Unser Jr. Shades of last week. Oh, look at this. Here comes Cheever. So Eddie Cheever around Ward for 8th. Grabbed the gear there with the traffic. So after 48 laps. Jill leads it. Back with the Indy Racing League, the Pikes Peak 225. Jill DeFerrin still the leader. Elio Castroneves closing in. They've been running through traffic ever since we left you. But they're the cars that are on the move. Most notably, Billy Boat with that great piece of tactical thinking coming up to the red flag, getting the car into the pits and giving him the lead. The Boat has now fallen back to 6th place. At Pikes Peak International, the pole held by Jill DeFerrin. He jumped into the lead from the start, and then the red flag came out for rain and hail. It was unbelievable. Eddie Cheefers said that the hail still hurts even when you're in your helmet. And the guys on the pit boards on the backstretch were actually holding the boards over their heads trying to find a little cover. Well, with great work by the track crew here, they got the track dry very quickly. We're back running. After 57 laps, there is your race recap as you ride with Sam Hornish Jr., who sits in 3rd place and wants to get up there and do battle with the Penske team.
Paul, from the beginning of the race, he's been right there behind both those Penske cars. You didn't hear much of a pitch change in the engine as he's going through turns 3 and 4. Even when he's lapping traffic, it tells you his car's working very well. You did not hear that big lift off the gas, so you know that his car is working well for him, especially in traffic. He's probably setting himself up, as he said, to be fast in this last 20 laps. He's had a few lets here where he's not gained points. He's fallen to 3rd place in the points championship, something he's unaccustomed to.
Keeping an eye on a battle for 5th place, because you've got Felipe Giafoni and then Billy Boat, and then Eddie Cheever, who closed down on this battle very quickly.
Well, Cheever started in 14th spot, and you heard a little bit earlier that he was very happy with his car, maybe not so many changes. Eddie has won here before. He certainly is aggressive when it comes down to the end of the race, and he probably knows that there might be a yellow that will help him move up here shortly, just in case he may be off the pace.
The leader is running very, very fast, 169.5 miles an hour through traffic. The same for 2nd place, Castroneves, and 3rd place, Sam Hornish Jr.
Great run. If you look at all those guys right now on the top, I'd say the first 10 guys are all running speeds very similar. Now, this is important because it tells you that not so many people are going to be able to break away and leave the people behind. Traffic will be an issue, as it always is on a 1-mile track. As you see right now, everybody's fanning out, trying to look for the spot to go around traffic, whether it's a passing for a vehicle or if it's going for a pass.
Now, you saw Billy Boat as he took advantage of Shigeaki Hattori. Felipe Giafoni got caught up behind him, and Boat got around. Now here comes Cheever to work on Giafoni. Let's see if Giafoni learned his lesson. Well, he did. He managed to separate himself from Cheever, but Hattori recognizes that Cheever's down there and gives him plenty of room.
Well, Hattori being the lap car, Paul, usually they want them down on the bottom side of the racetrack and allowing the race traffic that's faster to go around the outside. This was discussed this morning in the drivers' meeting with Brian Barnhart. He said, if you guys are being lapped, we'd love to see you on the bottom.
On board with Hornish, he almost loses it, gets high, almost kicks the opposite lock, and now comes back on it.
Paul, the reflexes to catch that is immense. You think about that. Probably 165 or 70 miles an hour, and he catches the car. The 2 cars in front of him were giving such dirty air. Slices under knife. Beautiful pass. And what happened previously is he got dirty air from the 2 cars in front of him, took all the air pressure away from his wings, and gave him basically a roller rink.
And net was that he may have lost a few yards, but that's about it, and that could have been disastrous. Jill DeFerrin still runs in front. Laurent Redon was 8th as they came back to racing. And he now runs in 4th place. I'll tell you, this young rookie, like some of the others we have, most notably Thomas Schechter, are really putting on a show. DeFerrin, Castroneves, Hornish, Redon, Boat, and Giafoni. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television.
Here at Pikes Peak International Raceway, the caution is on because of an accident involving Anthony Lazzaro off of corner number 2. And Scott Goodyear looked like he was running by himself, and suddenly the car just snaps away from him.
Yes, Bob, as you can see, when it comes to the frame, the car has already gone around backwards from him. The car could have been loose. The back end of the car itself is already around. As you'll see him here, going towards the wall. The tires are locked up. He's trying to scrub off some speed to not hit the car against the wall too quickly. But the car certainly was away from him by the time he got to the center of the turn. It could have been just one of those deals where the car is running loose on him.
Anthony quickly radioed to his crew that he was okay. He climbed out of the car under his own power. The pits, however, are still closed as the wrecker arrives at the scene of the incident. Join ABC Sports Saturday as defending champion Phil Mickelson battles Sergio Garcia, Vijay Singh, in a field of some of the PGA Tour's best. The Cannon Greater Hartford Open. Coverage begins Saturday live at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on ABC. Who will come up big in New England? We'll find out at ESPN.com, keyword ABC Sports. And now the pits have been opened, so we should see a lot of activity on pit road this time, because here at lap number 73, the drivers were very close to a need of a pit stop. Gilles de Ferran, Elio Castro-Neves, Sam Hornish Jr., Laurent Redon, and Billy Boat are the top 5. We see the first 3 headed for pit road. There is Redon, there is Cheever, and just about everybody on the lead lap comes in for a stop. Our triple split has Castro-Neves, Hornish, and de Ferran as we watch all 3 make stops.
Wing change on Hornish.
De Ferran out quickly, then Castro-Neves, and then Hornish. De Ferran with an 8.2 second pit stop, and the Marlboro Team Penske crew gets him in and out very, very quickly. So we're still under caution here at Pikes Peak, cleaning up the accident of Anthony Lazzaro. Under caution here at Pikes Peak International Raceway due to an accident involving Anthony Lazzaro. We'll be back to racing here in just a moment, but first, let's update you on the Indianapolis 500. Remember, an appeal was filed by Team Green concerning the outcome of that event. Let us refresh your memory. On the right side of your screen, we will show you the battle for the lead. That's Paul Tracy and Elio Castro-Neves. On the left, watch the crash involving Laurent Redon and Buddy Lazier. Does this pass occur before or after the caution came on? Paul Tracy passes Castro-Neves, but did it happen before or after the caution light came on? That is the question, and the testimony will be heard tomorrow by Tony George, the president and CEO of the Indy Racing League. He will hear the testimony and then take it under advisement. There is no deadline for him to make a decision, but one is expected within the next 30 days. That's the latest on the Indianapolis 500. Back to Paul and Scott.
Getting ready to go back to the green flag. It'll be 1 lap, 1 mile to go as they cross the line. And the order will be de Ferran, Castro-Neves, Hornish Jr., and Laurent Redon. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Quickly, before we go green, Anthony, you're okay, and can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, definitely. I got to say hello to my family and everything. I'm okay, guys. But I don't know, Gary. The car is really good after the red flag there, and the car wasn't loose or anything like that. I think the one thing I can think of is maybe I got over the bump just a little bit too much, just at the wrong time, and it just stepped around on me. It really caught me out.
I'm glad you're all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh.
So all of the major players made a stop on the 71st lap. We're now on the 79th lap. The guys that stayed out have, of course, been signaled around the pace car and come up to the back of the field anyway. So as they come by Jackaroo, it will be a green flag.
And Laurent Redon has moved into the 4th position. He radioed to his crew. He liked the way the car's working. Eric Bachelard, the team manager, radioed back, said, look, you've got a car capable of winning. Let's show everybody how it's done in France.
As they come back to the green flag now. Green is out, and they are back racing at Pikes Peak. And again, the Penske team goes after everybody, but look at Felipe Giafone as he goes inside of Laurent Redon. Very, very close off of 2. Battle for the lead as well.
Paul, these guys are racing right off the restart like they've only got 10 laps left to go, and I'm sure all the team members and team managers are sitting on pit road going, Man, oh man, we're not even halfway past this race right now.
Guys, this is why I guess we know now they qualified only 0.006 of a second apart. These cars seem to be so equal in any phase on this racetrack.
Marvel Team Penske battles at the front. Hornish hopefully have gotten the changes that he desired during the last stop, is beginning to close in.
And Paul, the changes that they made is they changed the wing configuration, the angle on the front wing. They had a long debate because we saw with the onboard camera on the Pennzoil Panther car that the car washed out and looked as if it got a little loose, but that was when he was in the dirty air, as Scott Goodyear said. After a lengthy discussion, they decided, Scott, to make a change to try and take some of the push rather than the looseness away. And guess what, fellas? It's starting to sprinkle again.
Oh, I don't want to hear that.
Well, Jack, I'll tell you one thing. Those are the changes that we see, those wing changes we can visibly see during the pit stops. The ones we cannot see are the tire pressure changes. A lot of engineers will start to play right now with tire pressures to see if they can improve the handling of the car for the drivers. Maybe a pound here, a pound there, and they'll watch the through their telemetry, what the pressures do all the way through the run with their drivers, and maybe make further changes in the following stop.
Scott, I've been told that a pound of air changed in one of these Firestone Firehawks will change the spring rate on these cars by as much as 50 pounds.
Absolutely, great handling techniques that you can use just to make sure you can make the car change the way you want it. And don't forget, the drivers also have the cockpit adjustments. They can do what we use a weight jacker to change the weight on the front of the car. They also have the roll bars, which allow inside the driver's cockpit adjustments to make the car handle different on the front and rear.
Firestone telemetry on board Sam Hornish Jr.'s car, and he is working all over the back end of Helio Castroneves. He got a little wide coming off of 4 and had to fall back, but again, he's closing in.
And Paul, as we ride along with him, look at his hands right now. They're almost at the 10 and 2, and as he goes along the straight, we're turning right now. You'll watch him get through the turn, and now he's in a comfortable position going through 1 and 2. As he's coming up here underneath Castroneves, he's going to have a look here, getting a little bit of a draft. Look at the hands right now. They go back, and the right hand is down, going down the straightaway, and that's so the steering wheel is comfortable right around your 10 to 2 area going through the turn itself.
The fight is for second as Hornish Jr. moved alongside of Helio Castroneves. They ran one corner that way. Now it seems to go back to the advantage of Castroneves, but it's not over. Hornish drops in, gets a little draft off of Castroneves. Gets alongside again. Look how fast they close on the leader, too. Again, a quick drop back. And maybe this time, just inches away. Over 170 miles an hour last lap.
I'll tell you, Paul, your heart rate's going right now. You know that you have no room for error, but if you make a move and you move over 6 inches, it's going to take both of you out.
And in Sam Hornish's position, he can also not only see from time to time the nose of Castroneves, but he hears that car.
Oh, you hear it, you feel it, you're pushing the wind of the car beside you. You heard Sam get off the gas. That's because his car was just about ready to push up into Castroneves' car, and very smartly he took his foot off the gas.
Got to look for a moment there at Big Sam, Sam's dad, as we continue to celebrate this Father's Day and what is a very family-oriented sport. Giafone suddenly slowed, went up high to the yellow. Excuse me, that is Herb. Herb got up right next to the wall, and the caution light came on. Couldn't tell from the shot if he brushed it.
Well, he's lucky he didn't do very much damage to the car. Obviously pancaked the right-hand side, but most importantly, didn't come back onto the racetrack and take anybody else with him.
So the caution comes on at the 92nd lap, with DeFerrin still in the lead and Castroneves still second ahead of Hornish.
See, he's high, way out of the groove. Probably knew that the fast guys were coming up behind him. Got off the dark part of the racetrack, up into the gray areas, we call it. You can see he's way higher than the other two guys, and he just gets on the marbles, and it sucks him up into the racetrack.
So that brings out the caution once again.
Absolutely.
Look at it again, Scott.
Now let's point out here one thing, guys, when we look at this. Look at where he is right now compared to the other two guys. The dark area you see right here is the groove. You want to be from here down towards the inside of the racetrack. And he is way outside on the marbles in the gray area, and it sucks him up into the wall.
Light brush with the wall, one that can be very expensive, but it doesn't look like going to be any problem with John Herb's health condition, thank goodness. In fact, might be enough of a brush that they might be able to get that car working again.
Back at Pike's Peak International Raceway, again under the caution. This is the third time today that the caution has been out. The first time was for the rain and the hailstorm that eventually turned into a red flag. We had an Anthony Lazzaro incident, and now John Herb has brushed the wall in turn number 4 to bring out this third yellow of the day. Jack?
Well, Bob, we have a very special guest that's been invited to his IRL race at Pikes Peak because of the fact that he won this, a bronze medal for 4-man bobsledding at the Salt Lake Olympics in 2002. We're talking to Doug Sharp. And Doug, first of all, congratulations for bringing home the bronze medal for bobsledding, but more importantly, you're a huge auto racing fan.
Oh, I love it. I've loved the IRL since its inception, and I've been watching IndyCar racing as long as I can remember.
Now, one of the things that people may or may not know is the man that designs your bobsleds. He was funded by Jeff Bodine from Winston Cup Racing. Bob Cuneo is also an open wheel fan. Has he talked to you about IRL racing at all?
Oh, absolutely. Bob Cuneo and Chassis Dynamics have set me up actually a little bit to start driving Indy myself and be in an IndyCar light car soon with the United States Speedway Series. So looking forward to it.
And we're looking forward to it as well. And Doug, could I keep the medal?
Well, I'll wrestle you for it.
I don't think so. Bob?
I have a feeling I know who'd win that wrestling contest.
You got that right.
Well, once again, we are under caution. 98 laps have been completed, not quite to the halfway point here at Pikes Peak International. The leader of the race is Gilles de Ferran with his Marlboro Team Penske teammate Helio Castroneves running second. 3 cautions, 1 for rain and hail, second for an incident involving Anthony Lazzaro, and this most recent incident involved John Herb. He brushed the wall in turn number 4 and is okay. So far, we have had 3 leaders and 3 lead changes. And we'll return after this word from our ABC stations. This is ABC Sports Championship Television. This caution here at the Pikes Peak Indy 225 is remaining on because of, again, a little bit of moisture that's moving over the racetrack. There you see the top 5, including our leader, Gilles de Ferran, who is very much a family man. And when he's not racing, you very often can find him cooking near the stove or the outdoor grill.
It's something that started more as a necessity than anything else, really. Obviously, this is called a lazy pig salad because all you have to do is open the back. I was 19 when I went to the UK to go racing. It was the first time I lived by myself and all that, and I found out it was cheaper to eat in than it was to eat out. The trick to any salad is the dressing. And the sign of a good cook is, as you can tell, I don't measure anything. Like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's disgusting. Well, everybody's a little different, I guess, you know. Never follow recipes. They inhibit your creativity. This is the spice drawer. As you can see, I got a lot of stuff in there. This is probably the most important one, the salt. Very important for red meat. It helps sear the meat and keep the juices inside the meat, and it tastes better and it becomes more tender as well. Now we're starting to grill the chicken. As you see, this is chicken thighs that are being deboned and no skin on it. I use this virtually every day.
Yeah, he's a great cook. He knows how to open the fridge and throw a few things together.
When I'm at home, I probably cook, I don't know, 60–70% of the time. Chicken. Always put the chicken before the red meat. It takes longer to cook. So the chicken's almost ready, then you put the steak. And you should make some steaks thicker than the others. Different sizes are also good, so you can cater to everybody's needs.
With Gilles, you get what you see. You know, he's very honest, he's very frank, and he's very down to earth.
Look at the concentration face. Smile, Anna, smile. It's hard to imagine life prior to having a wife and kids, really.
He's got a huge heart. I think that's what I like most about Gilles.
Having a family gives me motivation. I am more content, I'm happier, and I wake up in the morning and I look at my children and I see my wife and I think, man, this is fantastic.
34-year-old Gilles de Ferran won his second IRL pole position for this event, and he currently leads here today. He's led 96 laps so far. Elio Castroneves second, Sam Hornish third, followed by Redon and Giafoni. 107 laps completed here at Pikes Peak, still under caution. Technological advancements continue every year in the Indy Racing League, and nowadays there is an incredible amount of information at the Team Kelly drivers' fingertips, as explained by Scott Sharp.
Indy cars are some of the most technologically advanced race cars in the world.
Keep her down there. Keep her down there.
One of the new innovations that helps us as drivers is the Delphi Pi steering wheel. Instead of having buttons and switches all over the cockpit like we used to, this steering wheel puts everything in a very concise and manageable area.
Okay, go. Clear.
We have quite a bit of safety features built into the steering wheel.
The potential with this wheel is really unlimited.
Green.
Our pit speed limiter, which obviously you have to hold down to control your speed in the pits. We've got a reset fuel button, which obviously every time we fill the car with fuel, you need to hit. Our radio and talk button, an overtake button, which makes the car go to full rich. If you're in obviously a tight competitive position, you need that extra burst of power.
If one of the tire pressures go down while the car's on the track, he sees it immediately once it sees a certain parameter that it meets. It tells him exactly which tire it is and what's happening and gives him exactly what the pressures are.
You have exit speeds and lap speed and your average speed. Once you get comfortable with it, it's a steering wheel that offers all kinds of information, and as a driver, you can almost set it up any way you like.
The dash is built from Pi Research, which is built in England, and the steering wheel comes from Momo, which is from Italy, and the buttons are from a company made in France.
The circuit goes yellow. These buttons come on, and we've chosen a little different colors. Looks a little bit like Christmas tree, but it certainly gets your attention. These are the RPM bands. It starts yellow and goes up to red, so we know right when to shift, because you'll notice in the steering wheel there isn't an RPM gauge. The old Pi system would have that curvature bar of the RPM gauge. You used to watch the RPM. Now we don't even see it. It's just in lights.
So if he's going into a turn, he can actually talk on the radio if he needs to. If he's actually in a turn and needs to hit the overtake, he can actually hit that. So these buttons are specifically designed for the driver's placement of his thumb.
In an intensely competitive environment like the Indy Racing League, efficiency is everything. Being able to access data quickly, make a quick decision in half the time can make the difference between seeing a hole opening and not, making that pass and not getting it done.
Scott Sharp right now runs in 8th position as we await the return to competitive conditions here at Pikes Peak. Scott Goodyear, let's see what's on Scott Sharp's mind.
Scott Sharp, this is Scott Goodyear with ABC. You started 5th today and currently running 8th, and how's the car been working for you so far?
Things are going pretty well with the Delphi car, Scott. The Delphi guys give me some great stops, and you know we're chasing the balance a little bit, but the car's staying in the right window. So we're sort of trying to set ourselves up for the finish of the race.
And how about the car in traffic? Is the car working for you well in traffic?
Yeah, pretty well. Occasionally, you know, it's a little bit tight when you're right behind a guy, but that's sort of typical. But I think I'm better than others, that's for sure.
Well, that's good news. One last question. With the water coming down on the racetrack just a few minutes ago, what do you think is going to happen for you here shortly?
I don't think enough came down, Scott. And with the cars circulating, they're doing a pretty good job of keeping it dry. Or, you know, things probably cooled off a little bit. That'll probably have a bigger factor.
Well, we're back to green shortly. Good luck.
Thanks.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the telecast, weather conditions can change here at the spur of the moment, and we've had all kind of weather conditions so far in this race. Out of competition is John Herb. He is with Jack.
John, you've been released. You're okay. Tell us what happened.
Well, the weather here has been a little misty, a little drizzly. I think that played a factor in this, as well as the lap traffic come underneath me. I gave him a little room, probably a little too much room. Got up in the marbles with that moisture as well. Took me out to the fence and ended our day for the Star Registry car. So, unfortunate.
Bob?
Good to see that John Herb is okay. However, well, they should be getting the signal one more lap to go before green here in just a moment. You see a couple of drivers making pit stops. Thomas Schechter is on the left of your screen, while Buddy Lazier is on the right as they continue to work on that Coors car. Now he pulls out of the pit area. They will join the rear of the field, and next time by, we should be getting the green flag, Paul.
But you also had a stop by Richie Hearn. You saw him as he went in and out. They have just given the cross-furled flags to the field, which says they have just crossed the halfway point. Now they're a lap beyond that. So should you have another downpour, this would be an official race. But the other side of that is it stays daylight out here in Colorado till quite late, and they still have plenty of time.
Paul, watch on the
this race. Jack?
Paul, watch on the restart. Sam Hornish. They've discussed with Sam going back downstairs as quickly as possible and trying to create some issues with Helio Castroneves. The track conditions are perfect right now, but he's going to try and go be like a bad suit downstairs on Castroneves. There he is.
Already Hornish starts to make his move down on the inside. DeFerrin brings us back to green. Laurent Radon closes up and gives Hornish a little push. Felipe Giafoni sits high on Radon. Those are your top four. Alex Barron trying to make something happen down there on the inside as well in the 44 Rayovac car. And the two Kelly teammates, Al Unser Jr. and Scott Sharp, battle now for 7th. Here's Sharp to the inside.
Boy, that was a nice clean move by Scott Sharp. He heard him get a nice run on Al Unser Jr., make a clean pass on the inside. And here it's very tough for the drivers. They've got cold tires, full fuel load, trying to get back up to speed, up to pace, getting that mindset that we talked about. And certainly the Penske boys, and Sam Hornish, Laurent Radon, are doing a great job of that out front.
You're on board there for a second with the number 9 Target 2 Ganassi car. And you're looking back now at Eddie Cheever Jr. in his Red Bull car. He was up alongside the rear wheel of Wardy just a moment ago, and looks like he wants to get there again.
Now what happens here, Paul, is usually a car will work well on one end of the racetrack and maybe not so well on the other end. And you get around other drivers that might have the same problem. And if one guy works well in 3 and 4 and you work better in 1 and 2, but it's sort of like a cat and mouse game. Who can actually get by who in the other guy's territory?
Also sitting back there is Ayrton Dare. Remember how he figured into the finish of that incredibly close finish at Texas just a week ago. He actually helped push Wardy across the line to score his first victory, and Dare ended up 3rd behind Al Unser Jr.
Dare, one of the AJ Fort cars that's running very strong today. Greg Ray, unfortunately, had his problems so far. He's 1 lap down in 17th. And look how close these guys are getting.
Hornish drives to the inside now, going for 2nd place. Castroneves, this time he's got some staying power. He may even be able to go for the lead.
Listen to Pancho Carter next time he's on the radio telling that he's still there, still on the high side.
Castroneves has given it everything he can as they go wheel to wheel once again. Battle for 2nd.
Paul, both these guys are actually catching up to DeFerrin. They're running so fast.
Now Hornish has Castroneves. Now he's going to look for DeFerrin. Castroneves has not been able to answer Hornish in the past 2 corners.
And you know the teams have told these guys we're past halfway. Might get a lot of rain. If we get a ton of rain like we've had before, or front moves in, they could call this race. And don't you know these guys are thinking about that as far as the championship is concerned.
As we take a look at speeds at the line, Radon was the fastest at better than 170 and a half, 170.691 last time around. And Radon now starts to work on Castroneves. Radisson, the key Infinity at the front. Infinity Power versus Chevrolet. Chevrolet in the front three.
Chevrolet has done just a great job this year, has basically dominated and won every race, but the Infinities have been so fast, so many places, but through bad luck and some other things, have not won a race yet this year.
Well, with the rain and the cautions here today, we have already gone well past our scheduled time in about 8 minutes. We are going to have to leave you. We'll have updates on Sports Center. And of course, IRL.com, you can update there. On the move, Billy Boat, still the biggest of the movers. Part of that owing that he had to start way in the back of this field because he did not pass tech after qualifying fourth. Alex Barron, fourth place right now with Sharp closing. Alex Barron, 44 car, sixth place right now with Sharp closing.
Paul, they've done a great job. That team starting sort of late to get going there. Tom Gloy, the team manager, Blair Racing, John Dick, the engineer, that's gelled together so well. They've run strong everywhere they've been so far this year.
Also, when we leave you here, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network will also be on the air for you. Back at the front, DeFerrin, here comes Hornish, and now Loren Radisson closes again on Elio Castroneves. And ahead of the leader, traffic. Things could get very interesting now.
And Paul, you mentioned IndyRacingLeague.com to get updates, and you can even...
slowing car. Now everybody got around him. He just slowed down.
Vettori high off of turn 4. We saw that a little bit earlier on with some other guys just getting up there, getting the marbles, but he did a nice job collecting it. Going back to the IndyRacingLeague.com, the neat thing you see on there is you can actually see live the timing and scoring to see what all the drivers are doing as the race progresses.
Here comes Hornish. And as we take a look on board with him, look at the fastest laps of the day. Radisson, Hornish, with one exception, and that's Richie Hearn.
Well, you know, it's very interesting, Paul. You don't see the Penske cars there. They're not amongst the 10 fastest laps, which is very interesting. Tells you that maybe Hornish is quicker, but he's got to get through the traffic, and obviously catching a car and passing him is a different thing.
And one of Hornish's fastest was just a few laps ago. So the car right now, as we've seen, is very quick.
Hornish coming out of 4 right now. He's going to be trying to run laps flat out to try and get caught up to Gilles DeFerrin, who's in front of him, and DeFerrin's going to be doing the same thing. You can see DeFerrin just ahead of him, starting to catch up to traffic.
And here's some good news for our viewers on the West Coast. We will be able to stay on for West Coast viewers. So we're still working around trying to get as many stations to stay with us as we possibly can. DeFerrin, Hornish, and Castroneves. 1, 2, 3.
Paul, when you watched a pit stop just moments ago on Sam Schmidt's team, Packy Wheeler, their fuel man for the Richie Hearn team, got a lot of methanol in his eyes. He's been taken to the infield care center. He is fine, but they want to wash his eyes out.
Methanol pretty caustic. Al Unser Jr. and Scott Sharp. On board Sharp now.
And Paul, they talk about taking the crew member off to get his eyes washed out. The Indy Racing League has a traveling doctor system that goes to every event and every test. And not only for the drivers, but for crew members and everybody that's up and down pit lane. It's certainly a vote of confidence for the drivers when you know they're out there on the racetrack. If anything goes on, you've got your own medical doctors and system that follows you to every event.
And Scott, good news. They've completed their work, and Packy is back. He's going to put his helmet on, and he will complete his duties for Richie Hearn.
Now that's good news because the methanol fuel can be very caustic. Sharp closes on Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. is closing on 6th place Alex Barron.
Now, Paul, we saw earlier Scott Sharp do a nice move past Al Unser Jr., so maybe he got caught up in traffic, what allowed Jr. to go past around him again.
And traffic again figuring into it. Sharp looks to the low side of Unser Jr. And Sharp's pass. That's Buddy Lazier, the defending champion of this race that they got under.
Buddy certainly hasn't had a very good year so far this year. A lot of bad luck, and he's been taken out of a lot of races. Certainly is nowhere in the points right now, but he's always one of the fast ones and can turn his season around at any time.
Now, if you're watching on the West Coast, don't forget, we will continue on with the Pikes Peak 225, the Indy Racing League. For the East Coast, we've run well over our East Coast time, and we'll have to go off the air here in just a few minutes, but there'll be updates for you on SportsCenter, so, as well as IRL.com and on radio. Sharp. Wow, that's a fast pass on Barron. Sharp definitely on the move. Here comes Unser Jr. So at the front of the field, Jill DeFerrin with 141 laps complete, 83 to go now. Followed by Hornish Jr. and Elio Castroneves. Loren Radisson is fourth. Felipe Giafoni maintains fifth place.
So many strong cars at the front of the field, Paul. When it comes down to the end, there's going to be so many that are capable of winning this. We see this time and time again. So many of these races are just won by just less than a second.
One of the reasons why guys like Al Unser Jr. are beginning to really stab and steer is because they look skyward, and there is lightning this time in a big black cloud descending at Pikes Peak.
And thank you for the great news, Jack. On board the Delphi car of Scott Sharp. Felipe Giafoni, the Hollywood car number 21, just ahead of him. The man who had that magnificent qualifying effort that finally got him third place in the qualifying after a lot of engine trouble and only one lap to turn that qualifying lap.
Here's the straightest part of the racetrack right there. A run from turn 2 to turn 3. The only time that you're going straight on this racetrack. The rest of the time in the trioval that we're seeing the cars go through right now, you're always turning.
Sharp to the inside of Giafoni. Giafoni gives him plenty of room. And that quickly Sharp is by. It seemed like Giafoni ran a little high there. I wonder if that's what he intended, if he really wanted Sharp past him.
Well, what happens is the driver tries to work and work on the guy in front of him, try and get his nose underneath, and then the spotter of the car in front tells him he's underneath you, he's underneath you. You know you can't go down on the inside and close the door off on the driver behind you. And then all of a sudden you're stuck on the top side. They keep working you on the bottom. Sure enough, you'll get past.
The leader DeFerrin once again is having to handle up traffic. Hornish Jr. is separated now and falling a little further back. So Jill DeFerrin in excellent shape with 147 of the 225 complete, followed by Hornish and then Castroneves and Radisson, and now Scott Sharp up in fifth place.
A nice clean pass by DeFerrin. His car's working well for him. He's handling traffic without a problem.
So at the front of the field in the Pike Peak 225, Bob Jenkins, it's Jill DeFerrin, followed by Sam Hornish Jr.
And DeFerrin has led all but 8 laps. Again, for those of you on the West Coast, stay with us. Our coverage will continue. For everyone else, we must go off the air, but updates will be available on ESPN SportsCenter. The race has been dominated so far by Jill DeFerrin, who's led 141 laps so far. We have had 3 cautions for 43 laps, a couple of accidents, but nobody injured in a major rain and hailstorm that shut us down for 52 minutes. Coming up next here on ABC, World News Tonight Sunday, except on the West Coast where our coverage will continue. Join us on ESPN for our next race, the SunTrust Indy Challenge, live Saturday night, June 29th at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. ABC Sports is online at ESPN.com, keyword ABC Sports.
This is Paul Page. We're back at the Pikes Peak Indy 225. Jill DeFerrin is running away from everybody. Hornish has not been able to mount a charge, though he's only 3 1/4 seconds behind right now, and the yellow comes out. Yellow. And it's Jeff Ward. Jeff Ward catches the wall.
10-4.
Obviously, Jeff's okay. Car's going to slide to a stop, but the yellow is out.
Right side damage, Paul, you can see right there. Ended up hitting the wall and taking off the right front corner.
What has been an iffy and an unusual day, at least we forget, Gilles de Ferran twice this year has had victory in hand. At Indianapolis, it was his, and then the left rear came off after a pit stop. At Nazareth, it was barely a quarter mile from the finish, and he ran out of fuel. He's in front now, but the way this day has gone, who knows?
Well, Paul, as a driver right now, you're just taking one lap at a time, and you know you have to get to 225 for the Radisson race here, and everybody in their car right now is just thinking, how much longer do we have to go? We know the rain's sort of hanging around a little bit. All the drivers can see that over the top of their windscreen when they go through turns 3 and 4. A couple of rain showers we've had today have certainly delayed us, and they are just out there trying to run as hard as they can. This will give us an opportunity, though, to get one more pit stop, which was coming up shortly for fuel and for tires.
Exactly, Scott. In fact, Sam Hornish Jr., as we watch Jeff Ward walk his way to the infield care center, was scheduled to pit in 8 more laps. But one of the things that happens during a crash like this is the spotters go in and begin to debrief the other drivers. That's what Pancho Carter did with Sam Hornish and said, Sam, I've noticed the last 2 accidents have been a driver getting up out of the groove. Be careful, stay in the groove.
Here it is, Scott.
Absolutely. What ends up happening, you see, he's just out of the groove a little bit. We always talk about staying in that dark area where all the rubber is, and then you end up getting into the gray area where the marbles is, and sure enough, you can end up losing the front. Now, he's behind the traffic here. He's losing the front end. The car's trying to steer. It won't steer. As soon as he gets up into that gray area, sure enough, you're on the rubber marbles, and it takes you right into the wall like quicksand.
Well, the pits are open, and the leaders are in. And this could be crucial. What with the weather? Plus, this stop will take them all the way to the finish.
Interesting to see. No changes done on the Penske cars. No change done with the Panther cars.
De Ferran rolls first. Catherine Evans comes in behind him. Hornish slots into third.
Good job, guys. Good job.
And Mark Dismore is across the line right after Hornish.
And there was some debate as to whether the Pennzoil Panther team would make a wing change. But after consultation with their driver, Andy Brown said, let's not leave it. Let's leave it exactly the way it is. There seems to be just a little bit of looseness and when Sam gets behind another car. But you're right, Paul. What a great pit stop for the Menards team and Mark Dismore.
Yeah, Mark Dismore replacing Raul Boisel, who was replacing Jacques Lazier. Now, that doesn't give them the position on the track, though. It just gave them a great pit stop. They are still 1 lap behind the race, currently running in 11th place. And while we're talking about this car and Jacques Lazier, he has now indicated after talking with a number of doctors, including the IRL Chief of Medicine, Dr. Henry Bach, that he may be back when the IRL is ready to go race at Chicagoland Speedway.
Well, Paul, he wants to defend the race that he won there last year. And for a driver, that's certainly you want to go back there and make sure that you can do that. Interesting, though, Dr. Bach is one of the head doctors here, as you mentioned. Dr. Terry Trammell, who's the doctor that worked on Jacques Lazier, is also the doctor that I've used when I broke my back twice. He certainly gets you fit very quickly. He makes sure that you can get up and out of your cast quickly. And Jacques Lazier is so excited about possibly running at Chicago for the rest of the season. He was walking around here with a big grin on his face yesterday.
And I noticed, Scott, when we walk around the garage area and everything, a lot of your fans come up to you and they ask you, is it really over for you? And that broken back, that did end it.
Well, you know, when you do it once and you're in your 30s like I did years ago, you know, you're back to racing as quickly as you possibly can. My return race was the Le Mans 24-hour race for the Porsche factory. But when you're over 40 and you have a wife and 3 kids at home and you broke your back for the 2nd time, it sort of gives you the summer off to think about it a little bit. So I thought, why not come up and join my buddies up here in the booth?
It is interesting, though, to see the disappointment in many fans' eyes when you confirm that for them.
Well, it is, and you know, that's something special that you see as a driver, and you feel that, and it's just nice to know they got so many fans out there. But there's so many people coming to watch these races today. There's so many great drivers out there to cheer for. It's just neat to be part of the racing scene still.
This caution was caused when Jeff Ward got into the wall. Jackaroo?
Well, let's talk to Jacques Lazier and find out the latest clearance. Jacques, you went to see Dr. Terry Trammell. Now, earlier he said to make it to Chicago, you had what, a 1 in 1,000 chance?
Yeah, he gave me a 1 in 1,000. Realistically, probably closer to 1 in a million when I first went the week after the accident. And went back there on Wednesday. He saw that there's lots of growth in the bones, so everything looks like it's healing well. And he actually said if we keep going the way we are right now, there's a real good chance we'll be able to make Chicagoland. So that's my goal, and I really want to try to defend it for Team Menard.
So I think maybe Jacques Lazier just hit the lottery, guys.
All right, let's try and get a quick check-in with Scott Sharp again. Scott Sharp currently sits in 7th.
Scott Sharp, this is Scott Goodyear. You've had some great battles out there, and even with your teammate, the car looking like it's going to be good enough for you to get up to the front and win.
Yeah, Scott, jumped my cars really was rocking. That last run was a lot of fun. Worked the inside, outside, it was good. You know, catching up to Helio, and looked like we're really making some gain. We've got ourselves back a little bit now. We're going to have to really run hard these last 50 or so laps.
Well, right now we've only got a few laps, obviously, as you say, to the finish, and no more stops. Everybody's had their stop, and we hope you can get up there and have a good shot.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, Scott Sharp certainly believes he has an opportunity. The yellow, of course, closes everybody down once again.
Paul
and
Page
offers that opportunity, Jack.
Paul, there's always room for some humor, especially during a yellow flag.
Is this
Sam Hornish radioed to his team, is there anything that I can do to get a quicker jump on these restarts? And they radioed back to him, well, use the button for the nitrous oxide. Gary?
Just out of the medical center is Jeff Ward. Was it a case of just getting up there in the marbles and losing grip?
Yeah, we just started getting real loose there at the end and just trying to stay on the lead lap, which didn't happen, but it was just getting really loose and it stepped out, and then I saved it. When I saved it, I was in the marbles, so I just pushed up and touched the wall. But Target Chip Ganassi team, we'll be back next race at Richmond. It was unfortunate to go from a high to this low, but that's racing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Top 3 are all together. Then 3 slower cars, and then the rest of the field. The green is out, and here we go again. Everybody's fueled. Everybody should run to the finish. They go 4 wide into 1.
Oh, it's like a traffic jam. Drivers are always trying to make up time when you get to the start, and that's a great time to do it before everybody gets a chance to spread out. Then you got so much track space you have to make up before you get to the guy in front of you.
Scott Sharp said the car was strong. He goes alongside of Loren Radon. The battle is 4-6.
Paul, all these guys know that was probably the last yellow flag stop, so if they have any problems, they might have to come in underneath green. They know that this is probably a run to the end. You can't waste any time.
Let's forecast a little as we continue to watch Radon and Sharp. If the yellow came out again, we've got 171 of the 225 complete, 54 to go. Would you go in for tires?
Well, it depends on how the car is working. If your tires have got completely off, you might take a gamble on it, but everybody certainly has enough fuel on board now to make it to the end of the day.
But a fresh set doesn't mean that much.
Well, a fresh set could mean a big difference if your car's not been working well and you've used the tires up. But these Firestone tires are so good, I can't believe that you have an opportunity that you need to change them.
Yeah, on the other hand, you don't want to give up track position if you don't have to.
No, especially you don't want to. Especially under green, it would kill you. Put you down a lap here on this fast 1-mile track. Under yellow, it's still a big gamble. Passing here is very difficult.
Paul, how good are these Firestone Firehawk tires? Let's go back 1 week ago to Texas Motor Speedway. A splash and go for Jeff Ward with about 8 laps to go. They had some 16 laps on a set of tires, but he ran over some debris and pulled a 1/4-inch piece of the tire right off the tire. They ran the last laps with the cord showing. And guess what? Jeff Ward won.
That's absolutely amazing that they held up for that.
And that's the confidence that all these drivers have in the Firestone Firehawk tires here. You know when you put them on, you know you've got a good set, consistent set, and there's just never any question about the tires.
Gil DeFerrin ran the last lap at just under 170 miles an hour. Castroneves just over it, and Giafoni has been constantly over at least 170 and touched 171 and 172 a couple of times, as you see him close in at the back of Sam Hornick.
Paul, just a few moments ago, Roger Penske had been telling DeFerrin repeatedly, save fuel, work on fuel, work on fuel. Now he's just told him, fuel's okay, good job. Here comes Hornish.
Hornish down to the inside of Castroneves. The battle is for second.
Still outside, still out.
These guys are at it again. Only this time, Giafoni is right there and closing.
Paul, this is a renewal of the Penske-Panther rivalry we've seen all year. The Penske cars going against Sam Hornish with the Panther car. And Castroneves and Sam Hornish certainly want to be in front of each other. They don't like seeing the guy in front of them because that certainly means you're going to lose points for the championship.
And don't count out Felipe Giafoni. His team has been working the radio overtime, just urging their driver on, telling him he's doing great, to keep it handling just in the groove where he's at. He keeps saying, you can win this thing, you can win this thing. And Felipe Giafoni responds by keeping his foot buried on the throttle.
And you know, he's got some great brain power in the pits, including Peter Parrott, who has engineered some magnificent wins for Rick Mears, including the win that brought him from a lap behind at the Indy 500 to a victory. So you're Giafoni, you listen to what those kind of people say.
A lot of experience there. I'm certain he's listening, but he's also looking in his mirror right now and seeing Al Unser Jr., who was so strong before. Obviously a two-time Indy 500 winner, but we've talked about Al before. He's back, he's fast, he's renewed, he's fit, and he's so eager to win a race, and you could see the disappointment last week at Texas when he finished second by just a few feet.
Back at the front of the field as traffic in the person of Vettori. First, second are passed, all three are passed. It was no factor.
Tori's way off the pace there right now. We talked about it earlier. Brian Barnhart wants those guys on the bottom of the racetrack, allowing those guys that are faster to go up around the high side. Tori must be having a big problem with his car because he seems to be high and then low and all over the place.
You know, Brian Barnhart, who directs race control, said something interesting after the Texas race, and that was that a year ago he was so furious because everybody was slamming and banging. And you remember clearly the Eddie Cheever quote about how bad that was and how dangerous that was. And this year they've come this far, and he last week at Texas had no complaints whatsoever with anybody despite an incredibly competitive race.
Oh, Paul, you think about how fast you're going around a racetrack. Even at this particular track, 170 miles an hour average right now, topping out about 180, there can just be no room for error. You can't do what some of those guys were doing at Texas the other year at over 200 miles an hour. You have to respect your fellow drivers, and those guys are putting on just great shows now since they've done that, and all the drivers are out there having a lot more fun, not worried about getting themselves put up into the wall.
The Firestone telemetry for the 4-car of Sam Hornish Jr., and remember, when you see the lateral G's go up at 3.7, that's 3 times your body weight trying to push you out of the car to the right. Sharp finally gets around Barron. Barron, though, while he was in the competition at the front a while back, is a lap behind the race as the leaders are coming by.
And Paul, you talk about the drivers seeing those G's, and I can tell you from experience that when you get out of the car at a track like this, or Nazareth or Phoenix, the 1-mile tracks, when you're completing the lap in just about 20 or 22 seconds, you put your feet on the ground after 200 or 225 miles an hour here, and your feet are on the ground, although you feel like you're still going around in a circle. It takes you a good 10-15 minutes before you really get accustomed to just being out of the car.
8th place, Eddie Cheever Jr. now making his move to get around Shigeaki Hattori in the Epson car. No changes at the front, don't forget. Races here at Pikes Peak 3 times have had finishes with a margin of victory of less than half a second.
Drivers are clicking off laps right now, just trying to be smooth and consistent. Make sure they don't make any errors you've seen earlier on today. One small error up out of the groove, as we call it, that black area where the drivers try to stay in, that you see Eddie Cheever's car running in right now. If you just move on the high side of that into that light gray area, boy, it will take you up into the wall just so quickly.
Marlboro Team Penske, first 2 positions. And then a Panther on the prowl in the person of Sam Hornish Jr., who has said a number of times this year that it's almost a personal thing between him and Marlboro Team Penske. The very eloquent spokesman of the series, Eddie Cheever Jr. 98 Indy 500 winner.
Well, do you remember last year Eddie Cheever Jr. was a one-man operation for the most part, except when Scott Sharp drove and tested for him. Well, this year he expanded to include Thomas Scheckter, and he said his small band of pirates became a very organized Navy. But then when he added Max Pappas in Indianapolis, they have so much telemetry, so much going on. We've kidded Eddie Cheever Jr. about how big his team has gotten. He said, yeah, he says, we've almost got the population of a small third world country now.
What about Cheever's teammate, Thomas Scheckter? I don't think he's very comfortable here. He's right now 3 laps behind the leaders, running 17.
Earlier today, he told me, Paul, that he had never had so many close encounters with the concrete before in his life. He said this track had not necessarily had him spooked, but it was probably the most difficult track that he has driven on thus far in his rookie season.
And a significant statement for a guy like Scheckter.
Paul, we should also throw in the mix when you consider that he led, what, 85 laps at Indy, over 100 laps at Texas. And again, when I spoke with him right before I got in the car, it was the first time this season that I caught a tone of doubt.
Speaking of Scheckter, right now he has a very hungry Scott Sharp who just got around Ray Dawn, and now Scheckter is just gone. Sharp is just gone. Ray Dawn now has to deal with Scheckter, and he's got him. Sorry, Gary.
Just saying that it's the first time this year that I've experienced any sense of doubt from Thomas Scheckter. He's been so confident, so strong. I didn't feel that way in talking with him just prior to the start of this race.
Gary, absolutely, because he's a guy that has the utmost confidence. He reminds me a little bit of Juan Montoya when he was in the cars, because he certainly is a guy full of confidence. But if he has a hard time with this track now, think of our next race at Richmond. That's another unforgiving track with a lot of wall around it.
Remember last week, Scheckter had the problems with his radio in his helmet? Well, when he went out to the pits to get in the cockpit, he brought 2 helmets. He put them on and he kept saying, like the old commercial, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?"
That was Richie Hearn getting past Scheckter, and there comes his Boston teammate coming by. Scheckter is definitely well off the pace. He's been turning the last couple laps 15 miles an hour slower than the leaders.
Paul, I can tell you from having that experience sometimes at different tracks, it makes for a very long day for a driver. You look and you see how many more laps you have left to go. For instance, another 27 laps, and that can be a long time. It's no fun for a driver right now when he's going around there just trying to keep the car on the racetrack and stay out of everybody's way, listening to the spotter, telling him who's coming up behind him, and watching his mirror and trying not to make a difference in the outcome of the race.
Battle for 8th now. The Harris 14 car, owned by A.J. Foyt, driven by Ayrton Dare, as he closes now on Eddie Cheever for 8th. At the same time, Sam Hornish Jr. is beginning once again to catch Helio Castroneves for 2nd. Well, you see that onboard camera and you think, well, they're back a lot further, and then when you see the outside view, and he's right on top of it.
And Paul, we talked a little bit before about maybe a car works better at one end of the racetrack than the other. It looks like Hornish works better right now in turns 3 and 4, where he's coming into turn.
Traffic ahead, the yellow just comes on.
Yellow's out.
So the field slows. It looks like Greg Ray may have a problem in the power plant department. He's got a spray at the back of the car, and they're not willing to take a chance with that.
No, Paul, and he also needs to get off the racetrack, off the groove, as we call it, where everybody's going to be racing when it goes back to green flag racing, and get that car below this white line down here, which is the apron area, which is where he needs to be to make sure that he's not oiling down the racetrack.
I wonder why he's being sane up there. You got a glimpse there of George Mack's car during a couple of these cautions. We've talked in the past about Radio Mack and how entertaining it is to the people who come to the track with scanners and listen to the in-car frequencies. He was apparently singing for his pit crew. So it's DeFerrin, Castroneves, and Hornish. We're under caution again, closing laps at Pike Peak.
Under our 5th caution of the afternoon here at Pikes Peak International Raceway, and have less than 20 laps to go in this event. Let's show you what's happened so far in this 225 miler. The big story came on lap number 34 when it hailed and rained, and we brought out the red flag, and the moisture was everywhere. Racing resumed with Billy Boat in the lead, but on lap number 38, Jill DeFerrin, who had won the pole, recaptured the top spot and has dominated so far. On lap number 70, Anthony Lazzaro in turn number 2 loses control, backs into the outside wall. He was not injured. On the 92nd lap, John Herb tried to get out of the way of Elio Castroneves, and Sam Hornish got up into the loose and brushed the wall, bringing out another caution. And most recently on lap 161, Jeff Ward crashed in turn number 4. He also escaped injury. That brings you up to date on what's happened so far, Jack.
And the latest retiree is Greg Ray. Greg, what happened?
Really disappointing. You know, we finally got the car settled down. We're going pretty quick, and we had an oil fitting break on the back of the car. So, you know, we had a good handling car there at the end. We went a lap or 2 down early in the race, and just one of those days. I want to say thanks to EDS and AT Kearney, but our day's short.
Greg, when do things turn around for you and with this AJ Foyt team?
Well, I mean, this is my 3rd race with them. We haven't got to do any testing. You know, the setups are a little bit different, and it's just getting the chemistry with everybody. But I mean, AJ Foyt is a living legend, and I think we'll get our stuff straight, but it's going to take a little time.
Good luck to you, Greg.
Thanks.
Let's check in with Gary Geralders with another living legend.
That would be Roger Penske. Roger, how do you play these last 20 laps with a question mark about the weather?
Well, I think Jill says sprinkling out there. We just want to be sure we have a dry racetrack. You know, we'd like to go to the end and race like we have to, but at the moment, it's up to Brian to make the call. Right now, we still got sprinkles.
Now, we heard you on the radio telling him earlier, conserve fuel, and then you were saying he's okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
Was there a problem
there? We were a little tight on that fuel stop, trying to be sure we didn't get beat by Hornish or Elio, but I think we're in good shape now. We can go all the way.
All right, thank you, Roger.
Sam Hornish Jr. will come back to the flag in 3rd place. Once again, they will all be bunched together. They were going to go back to green flag racing, and then there were a few more sprinkles, and they waved off that restart. And now we're counting laps down. 208 complete, 225 the scheduled distance, only a mile around. It'll go like blazes when it actually does. And nobody can afford to miss that restart. It's all momentum.
Paul, we've seen Sam Hornish earlier on get very aggressive on the restarts because he knows that's his opportunity to pass when the green flag comes out. Now, the rule states that as soon as the green flag comes out and the green light comes on, you can go back to racing. And on a restart, you do not have to wait to get to the start and finish line before you pass the car in front of you. That's why you've seen the drivers try to get underneath the guy in front of them, coming off of turn 4 and get a run going down the front stretch into turn 1 itself. So wait to see on the restart here what's going to happen. I bet you will see a very aggressive Sam Hornish Jr. trying to get a car in front of him, or maybe even both the Penske cars.
Well, they do have one slower car that's up there between 1st and 2nd. That's George Mack, just ahead of Elio Castroneves, back down to the pits.
Well, yeah, and George Mack, we understand John Barnes is going to give way so that Sam Hornish can get up in the fracas.
Well, I think you know, we'll just have to see what happens when we get there. He was going to talk to the spotter, and they were going to try he was going to try to go low, and then we're going to try to pass him on the outside, but he said he couldn't hold his car down there, so we're going to have to go on the low side. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, talking about seeing what happens, does the Pennzoil Panther team have what it takes to get by those 2 big red machines?
I don't know. We hurt ourselves here in the pits and on the last pit stop and cost us a position. It won't happen again.
Green flag is next time by, fellas.
The signal for one more lap back to the green. You've got this 3-car battle for the lead and a little bit of intervention in the person of Billy Boat. And then you've got Felipe Giafoni trying to hold off Unser Jr., Sharp, and Radon. We'll watch the restart from on board the Pennzoil Panther car of Sam Hornish Jr.
And Paul, when we come back to the restart, watch Sam's right hand right here. He's going to be taking it off and going to the gear lever, which is right down in this area here, to change gears as they go up through. You'll see the lights come on the dash right here. He can see it in his peripheral area, and he knows when to change gears. The lights are on, he goes for another gear. That was a slow shift, though, I will tell you.
Green flag is out. George Mack holds a position high. Castroneves moves around him and takes up a charge on the leader. Now Hornet Jr. moves to the inside. He's got Mack. Felipe Giafoni closed very quickly. Hunter Jr. working on Giafoni. This is the 4th place battle. Sharp, that move around Boat just keeps him in contact with his teammate Hunter Jr. and Giafoni in that ongoing battle for 4th.
Hunter Jr., we talked about it before, doing a great job. Radon directly behind him is Sharp now sitting in 7th. Only less than 20 laps left to go right now, and all these drivers are going to be trying to keep their foot on the peg, as we call it. Flat out, not to give up any time, and if there is any traffic ahead, it certainly could play a part in the outcome of the race.
Scott, you were riding on board with the Pennzoil Panther driver Sam Hornish. You saw him attempt to shift. You've just been told that he actually missed the shift, and that accounts for the slow start.
Absolutely mentioned that. That was just not a very good shift when he actually got on the front stretch there. You heard the car get on the limiter, and then he hesitated just for a second. You could see the Penske cars just yank ahead of him by about 3 or 4 car lengths.
Radon closes on Hunter Jr. Hunter Jr. still waits station right behind Felipe Giafoni. 10 to go now. Last lap by the leader, his fastest yet at 171.2. His teammate Catherine Evans up there at 171.4 right behind him. And Hornish at 171.6.
Now, Paul, on the restart, the 2 Penske cars, especially Gilles de Ferran, a clear racetrack in front of him for quite a few laps. Maybe might not even run into any traffic if we've only got 10 laps left to go.
9 to go now for Gilles de Ferran. Faster yet the last lap, up to 171.4.
1.4, nice and smooth, 8 to go, slow car ahead.
You heard the radio contract, slow car ahead, so he's going to have to make sure he deals with that very efficiently. And if he does win today, I think this will be his first win in an IRL race.
First through 3rd, now pulling away. There they are all together. There's the battle for 2nd. 7 to go. The rest of the field now almost a full straightaway behind.
This is a time, Paul, when you can hear the interval there, 1.3. He's getting that information. Gilles de Ferran is on his radio. But this is a time when the teams can't do much for the drivers. They're just out there by themselves, trying to run as hard as they possibly can.
Hornish Jr. has been picking his pace up as well. You got a glimpse of Felipe Giafoni in 4th place with 5 to go. He was caught up behind Mack, but it didn't seem to be slowing them all that much.
Inside, clear. 4 to go.
Leader is going to have some traffic.
1.2. Inside, clear.
And that traffic also is Scheckter. You've mentioned, Paul, that he's been off the pace. And still, look how close the guys get passing the lap traffic, and they're going about 40 miles an hour faster. They just hope the lap traffic they're passing does not move 6 inches to the right, or there'd be a big crash.
Less than a mile, or 2.5 miles to go now. 2 miles as they cross the line.
2 more laps, 2 more.
De Ferran's been this far in the lead. He was there at Nazareth and didn't win.
Time, Paul, when the driver is actually talking to his car, listening to everything that's going on, especially when you got a bit of a lead, just trying to hit your entry to the corner, the apex to the corner, and the exit.
So on the final lap now for Gilles de Ferran, looking to become the 24th different winner in the 63rd running of the Indy Racing League. Off of 4, looking for the flag.
Good job.
Gilles de Ferran first. Catherine Evans second. Hornish Jr. third.
The whole weekend, by the way. This was your weekend, buddy.
Felipe Giafoni will cross the line in 4th place. followed by Unser Jr., followed by Scott Sharp, Unser Jr., and Loren Raydon. Bob Jenkins, great finish.
And Gilles de Ferran goes to victory lane for the first time in his Indy Racing League career after having dominated this race, leading 217 of the 225 laps. We had 3 leaders and 3 lead changes. Billy Bowden and Elio Castro Neves were the other leaders in this event. Join us on ESPN for our next race, the SunTrust Indy Challenge, next Saturday. That is Saturday night, June 29th at 7:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific. Gilles de Ferran wins at Pikes Peak International Raceway.